Photography began for me at the Meeting Place Drop-In Center, a shelter for the homeless where I worked as a volunteer. A photographer who lived in the area had passed away, and his family donated his camera and darkroom equipment to the center. So myself, along with a few of the members, built a darkroom and began to teach ourselves how to develop and print pictures. We met twice a week and founded the Meeting Place Camera Club. I found myself in the interesting position of being both teacher and student of a medium that I was quickly drawn into. Our club began to get a lot of attention. Andrea Curtis, the editor of this magazine, a nonprofit magazine in Canada, approached me and asked if the Camera Club would like to do a 10-page spread of photos on housing by the homeless. I was pulled in deeper. We began to meet 4 times a week and photograph where and how people were living. But the group changed almost weekly. People would lose interest, drop out of sight, cameras went missing, film was lost. Many died because of the very conditions we were photographing. Some weeks, no one would show up. What began to surface was the reality of homelessness. The project lasted 1 full year, and when it was finished, I felt as though I lost myself. I left Canada and came to New York, but that only made me feel more displaced. I had my camera and attempted each day to photograph on the streets, but I couldn't. Too much reality had left me unable to photograph the world around me, bear witness. All I saw was pain and suffering. So I started to take pictures of myself in my apartment. And since the camera was on self-timer, I didn't have to be behind it, which was also very difficult at the time. I could give myself to it. At first, it was about the excitement of being alone in the process, of having complete control. I took the pictures, was in them, developed the film, and then printed them. But then it became about something much deeper. It became a form of communication, a dialogue with myself, a reconnection. I needed the solitude to hear the voices that were coming out of my body. I needed to respond. I needed to respond to everything I had stored in there, things that were rising to the surface. The images became clues, signs, links to the stories that needed to be said. It became my way of developing a language, like hieroglyphics, of finding a way to speak again. However, all creative processes are plagued with insecurities, and as the project grew, I became discouraged by it. Fear of failure made me want to turn away. I didn't believe the pictures had any value to anyone but myself, until I met photographer Alex Harsley at his gallery, the 4th Street Photo Gallery. He has been my greatest influence in photography and my greatest supporter. When I saw his work, I asked him to take me on as a student, and this began a whole new journey. We began to sort through my negatives, and he helped me edit them down and selected pieces for me to print. and together we pulled out a small body of work. To my surprise, he encouraged me to keep doing what I was doing, but to go deeper. He loaned me his camera, an old 4x5 with a couple of lights, and told me to go make pictures. He wanted me to slow down and consider the image before I snapped, to understand what it means to expose film. Since all the images I had taken previous were done with a camera set on automatic and a timer, I was brought back to the very beginning part of the process. But this began a whole new struggle, a struggle with the actual medium itself, learning how to use its tools, considering all the variables. At first I was intimidated by the large negative, the awkward camera, the bright lights in such a constrained space. Using an air release instead of a timer also complicated the process. The first 2 months, there was nothing but failure. I started with 4 carriers, 8 frames, 8 chances, and came out empty each time. At times, there was nothing on the frame, or they were overexposed, or underexposed, or just a blur appeared. We met each week. Monday, I would shoot. Tuesday, I would develop film. Wednesday, I would print. Thursday, I would tone. And then on the weekend, the failure. And yet, each week was a small step forward. Alex would sit me down with a book, a lecture, a pat on the head, and I couldn't give up. I was learning about technique. About my technique. I was learning about tones. And when the mechanics became somewhat controllable, the story pushed forward. And the story pushed forward. Became less blurred, less angry, more focused. I began to work with the camera. And I began to realize how the images were the process. They are part of the process of learning how to speak. Of creating a language. Of dealing with time and loss. Fear. And now as I stare out across all these photos, a full year of photo making, I can see where I've been. But I can see more clearly where it is I'm going. And I'm at the beginning again, on the edge of the very next picture. That is forming slowly inside my mind. So now I see the success and all the failure.